Willa Fairbanks didn't expect her entire afternoon to pivot on a stranger holding her place in a coffee line, but then again, she hadn't expected the line to be wrapped around the block either. "Excuse me," she said, tapping the arm of the man in a black coat in front of her. His back was broad, posture straight, and he turned with a lazy kind of grace that made her pause for a second. His eyes gray like a storm about to hit locked with hers. "Yeah," he asked, voice deep, warm. I really need to run in and use the restroom before I explode." "Could you maybe hold my spot?" He raised an eyebrow. "Just a bathroom run." "Yes," she said quickly. "I'm not trying to cut or anything. I've been waiting for 20 minutes already." He studied her for a second, then gave a small nod. "You've got 5 minutes." "If you're not back, I'm drinking your latte," Willa grinned. "Deal." She darted through the coffee shop doors, weaving past tables and baristas, and found the restroom. When she came back, slightly breathless, he waved her back into position like he'd been doing it all his life. "You made it," he said, glancing down at her. "I'm impressed you didn't sell my spot to the highest bidder." "Nah," he said, "didn't feel right. You've got honest eyes. Thanks, I think." They moved forward in the line, slow but steady. Willa tucked her hair behind her ear, then looked up at him. "I'm Willa, by the way," he hesitated. Graham Bishop. Nice to meet you, Graham, who didn't sell my place." His mouth curved upward. "Nice to meet you too, Willa, who barely made the 5-minute cutoff." They ended up ordering at the same time. He paid for his black coffee and one for her too before she could even protest. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I know," he said. "But I wanted to." She stared at him, not used to that kind of easy generosity from a stranger. "You always buy coffee for girls you meet in line, only the ones who make bathroom emergencies sound charming." They stepped aside as others ordered. She blew across the top of her steaming drink, still watching him. "Let me at least buy you a muffin or something," Willa offered. He shook his head. "Just sit with me if you're not in a rush." She hesitated, checking the time. Her temp job at the design firm didn't start for another hour, and honestly, sitting across from him sounded better than another 30 minutes in a waiting room chair. "All right," she said, "but only because I owe you." They sat by the front window. He was easy to talk to, funny but not trying too hard. He didn't offer much about himself, but he asked questions about her, what she did, what she liked, where she was headed. "I'm trying to get into interior design," she said. "Right now I'm just running coffee and making copies, but eventually I want to do my own spaces. Build something real, you know," he nodded slowly. "I get that. What about you?" she asked. "What do you do?" "Bit of this, bit of that," he said. "Mostly business." "That's vague," he smiled. "You wouldn't believe how boring it sounds when I explain it." She narrowed her eyes at him, playful. "You're mysterious, that's suspicious." Dangerously so, they laughed. It was strange how easy it was, how the conversation just flowed. When she finally glanced at her phone, she gasped. "Crap." "I've got to go." He stood when she did. "Need a ride?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm just a few blocks away, but thank you again, really." He looked like he wanted to say something else but didn't. "Maybe I'll run into you in another line someday," she said, stepping backward toward the door. "Maybe," he replied, watching her go. She didn't look back until she hit the sidewalk. He was still standing by the window, watching her through the glass. Graham didn't usually walk anywhere. But that morning, his driver had called out sick, and he'd decided to try normal for once. No private SUV, no assistant, no name dropping. Just a coat, dark jeans, and a craving for real coffee. He hadn't expected her. Willa. No makeup, soft brown eyes, no idea who he was, and she talked to him like he was just a guy in line. He liked that. Later that day, back in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, he couldn't stop thinking about her. Graham, his assistant Dana, appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "The investor dinner's tomorrow night. Want me to call Celeste to be your +1? "No," he said, too fast. "Don't call anyone," she blinked. "Okay, should I leave the slot open?" He looked out the window, fingers tightening around the coffee cup he still hadn't thrown away. "No," he said. "I've got someone in mind." Willa walked into her office space the next morning, still thinking about Graham. She'd told herself it was nothing, just a stranger who held her spot in line. But even now, she remembered his laugh. The way he looked at her like she wasn't invisible. She sighed. Guys like that didn't show up twice. And even if they didn't fall for girls who ate instant noodles 5 nights a week. Still, part of her hoped. So when she walked into the design firm's lobby and saw him standing there leaning casually against the front desk, hands in his pockets, she froze. "Graham," he looked up, smiled. "Hey, what are you doing here?" "I have a meeting upstairs," he said smoothly. "Saw your name on the intern list when I came in." She gaped at him. You looked me up." He walked over slowly. "I wanted to see you again." "Is that weird?" She shook her head, barely breathing. "No, just unexpected." He handed her a sleek white envelope. "There's a dinner tomorrow night. You should come. Bring that charm and those honest eyes." She stared at the envelope, gold embossed, heavy. It looked expensive. "What kind of dinner is this?" He leaned closer. "The kind where you'll need a dress and an appetite." Before she could say anything else, he winked and walked away, calling over his shoulder, "7 o'clock, I'll pick you up." Willa stood there, stunned, her heart thundering. Who was this guy? And why did it feel like her life had just changed forever? Willa stood outside the tall glass doors of the Midtown ballroom, the night wind teasing her curls as she clutched the edge of her long navy coat. Beneath it, a dress she could never afford shimmered subtly under the city lights borrowed from her cousin who worked wardrobe backstage at a theater downtown. She wasn't sure what unnerved her more, the fact that Graham had found her or the fact that she'd said yes. A black Bentley rolled to a stop at the curb. The back door swung open, and there he was, tailored suit, crisp collar, and the kind of composure that drew eyes without effort. "You came," he said, holding the door. She hesitated only a second before sliding in beside him. "I figured if you went through the trouble of tracking me down, the least I could do was show up." He glanced over at her, his gaze lingering a moment before he looked forward again. "You look incredible." "I borrowed it," she said quickly. "Don't be too impressed." "I'm not impressed by dresses," he said. "I'm impressed by the woman wearing it." Willa turned toward the window, her heart tapping a little faster. The car moved through the city with practiced ease, weaving through Saturday traffic until they reached a building lit like a chandelier had exploded inside it. Valets in black coats opened doors, ushered guests into a space that gleamed like every surface had been polished by diamonds. "You didn't say this was a gala," she said under her breath as they stepped out. "I didn't want to give you a chance to say no." Willa forced a breath through her lungs. "You really don't believe in easing people into things, do you?" He offered his arm. "Not when I know exactly where I'm going." Inside, everything sparkled. Gold trimmings, a string quartet, champagne towers that looked like they belonged in a movie set. People in gowns and tuxedos laughed softly, kissed cheeks, and moved like they belonged there. She did not. "Just tell me you're not dragging me into a charity auction where I'm the prize," she muttered. "You'd go for at least $1 million, he said without blinking. "Probably more." She shot him a look that made him chuckle. A woman approached them almost instantly. Early 40s, burgundy dress, lips like a polished apple. "Graham," she cooed, kissing the air near his cheek, "you never bring anyone." He slid his hand to the small of Willa's back. "Willa, this is Madeline. She's on the board." And a little shocked, Madeline added. Her eyes flicked over Willa in a sweeping assessment that landed somewhere between curiosity and disapproval. "What do you do, dear?" "I'm in design," Willa said, steady. "At a firm downtown." Madeline's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "How charming." "Madeline," Graham said, voice even, "you're blocking the view of the bar." Madeline laughed lightly and drifted off, but not before casting one last glance at Willa as if memorizing her for later. "Your circle seems intense," Willa said as they walked further in. "They're used to a certain rhythm," Graham said. "You're not part of it, that's why they stare." "Great. So I'm the scandal of the evening." "No," he said, pausing as a waiter passed. He handed her a glass of something pale and bubbling. "You're the reason the evening's interesting." She sipped the champagne, grateful for the fizz to distract her. "You keep saying things like that." Like what? Like you mean them. His answer was quiet but immediate. I do. They found a table near the back, close enough to see the stage but far enough to speak without being overheard. A man in a dark gray suit stopped by, shook Graham's hand with practiced familiarity and moved on. You're not just another guest here, she said, turning to him. They're looking at you like you built this place. I didn't, he said, but I own the property it sits on, she blinked. You're serious. He leaned back in his chair, not smug, not showy, just certain. I told you I do business. That's not business. That's empire building. He looked at her then, the noise around them fading just a little. Does it change how you see me? She considered that. Only if you start acting like it should. He smiled, not the polished kind he'd given to the guests, but something slower, quieter. I won't. Dinner was served plates with tiny, perfect portions and names she couldn't pronounce. Graham didn't try to impress her with the wine pairings or explain the art hanging nearby. He asked about her parents, her favorite movie, the worst date she'd ever been on. He told her about his sister who lived in Florence and how he hated sleeping in silence. When the music changed and couples rose to dance, Graham stood and extended a hand. I'm not exactly trained in ballroom, she warned. You don't have to be. She hesitated, then let him guide her onto the floor. His hand settled at her waist, the other held hers, and they moved not perfectly but together. Her heels caught once and she stumbled, but he steadied her instantly. You okay? Yeah, she said, breathless. I just forgot how to walk for a second. You're doing fine. They moved in slow circles, surrounded by the hum of violins and murmured conversation. Willa's heart was a metronome gone rogue. You didn't bring me here for fun, she said finally. Why? He looked down at her, his expression unreadable. Because I wanted to see how you'd handle this world. And, you're not pretending, he said. Everyone else does, you don't. That's rare, she tilted her head. You don't know me, not yet. The music ended. They stopped moving, but neither stepped away. His hand stayed at her back, hers at his shoulder. I don't do this, she said quietly. Dance? Whatever this is. Neither do I, he said. They stood there a beat too long before applause broke around them. She stepped back, breath caught somewhere in her chest. Come on, he said. I want to show you something. He led her through a side hall, past staff-only signs and up a narrow stairwell. At the top, a rooftop terrace opened wide, completely empty. The city stretched out in every direction, lights flickering like stars had dropped to the pavement. Whoa, she whispered. No one ever comes up here, Graham said, walking to the edge. They're too busy looking at each other, she joined him. The wind lifted her curls and she wrapped her arms around herself. He shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders without asking. You always bring women up here, she asked. Never, she turned to him, searching his face. Why me? He hesitated, then spoke, softer than before. Because I can't stop thinking about you. Willa's pulse stumbled. You held my spot in line, she said, half laughing, half shaking. That's all. No, he said. That's where it started. She opened her mouth, but nothing came. He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough to feel the warmth between them. I've been in rooms full of people who say everything right. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't even know who I was. That's not something I take lightly. Willa pulled his coat tighter. You're kind of impossible to figure out. Good, he said. Then maybe you'll stick around long enough to try. Below them, the music swelled again, but up here everything was still. The next morning, Willa woke still wrapped in the scent of his jacket. She'd folded it neatly over the back of her desk chair after getting home, but it clung to her like a memory she hadn't been ready to let go of. She hadn't slept, not really. She'd replayed everything. The rooftop, the way his eyes had darkened when he stepped closer, the sound of the city stretching beneath them like it was theirs alone. She wasn't naive. She knew men like Graham didn't just fall into someone's life without a reason. And she wasn't the kind of girl who believed in fairy tales. But something about him calm, deliberate, attentive without being performative threw her off balance. At the office, the mood was chaotic. The firm's lead designer had called out sick, and Willa's supervisor, Ava, was pacing near the conference room, murmuring into her headset. Willa stepped forward hesitantly. "Is there anything I can help with?" Ava looked up, surprised. "Actually, yes. Graham Bishop's team is requesting a portfolio presentation for a downtown project. They want a preliminary mood board by this afternoon." Willa blinked. "Wait, Graham Bishop?" The real estate investor. Apparently, he's expanding into boutique hotels. "He requested our firm specifically," Ava cut in, distracted. "You're familiar with his aesthetic," Willa's heart thudded. "I have a general idea." "Good. He wants something minimalist but with warmth, no sterile lines. Think layered textures, natural light but not rustic." "I need a draft in 3 hours. Can you handle it?" Willa nodded, her mouth dry. "Yes." She slipped into the open workstation near the windows, pulled up design references, and began sketching. She lost herself in it, layering soft amber tones with matte black finishes, touches of brushed brass, and unexpected textures like concrete paired with velvet. It was the kind of space she could picture Graham in. Not hosting events or giving orders, but just existing in silence, away from the chaos. By early afternoon, Ava reappeared. "He's here. Wants to review the draft personally." Willa's stylus slipped from her fingers. "He's what?" "He's in the conference room." She stood slowly, smoothed her blouse, and carried the tablet into the room. Graham was alone at the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled, reviewing a stack of renderings with a focus that made him seem like a different man. Not the one who had given her his coat. Not the one who had danced with her under a chandelier. This version of him was all steel and silence. When she stepped in, he looked up. His expression didn't flicker. "Willa, you asked for me." "I asked for the best concept," he replied. "Didn't know it would end up being yours." She crossed the room, set the tablet down in front of him, and tapped to scroll through the concept. "I kept the layout clean but included layered lighting and natural materials. You said you wanted warmth. The space faces west, so I played with golden hour tones." He studied it in silence. The only sound was the quiet buzz of the monitor behind them. Finally, he looked at her. "You didn't tell me you were talented. You didn't ask." A slow breath left him, almost amused. "Touché," she crossed her arms. "Is this why you came here, to see if I could handle your project?" "No," he said plainly. "I came because I couldn't stop thinking about you." The project was an excuse. She stared at him, stunned. "I'm not trying to manipulate you," he added. "I wanted to see if you were as brilliant as you are beautiful." "Apparently you're more. Flattery doesn't excuse power plays." "That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Graham?" she asked, voice lower. "Because I need to know if I'm just entertainment for a man who can buy anything he wants." He stood, pushing the tablet aside. "You think I'm playing with you?" "I don't know what to think." He stepped around the table closer but didn't touch her. "You think I don't see how hard you're working? You think I don't know what it means that you're showing up in borrowed dresses and still managing to own every room you walk into?" Her eyes stung. She hadn't expected that, not the clarity, not the fact that he really saw her. "I'm not asking you for anything," he said. "Just don't shut the door before you know what's behind it." She looked away, trying to steady herself. "This is a lot, I know," he said. "And I'm not going to rush you, but I'm not going to pretend I don't want more." Before she could gather a reply, Ava poked her head into the room. "Graham, your driver's waiting. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. He didn't take his eyes off Willa. "Send him on, I'll walk." Ava blinked, then disappeared. "You don't have to do that," Willa said, voice tight. "I know," Graham replied. "But I want to." They left the building together, the early evening sun casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Pedestrians brushed past them, but neither spoke until they hit the corner. "I'm not used to this," she admitted. "To attention like yours. It feels like I'm waiting for the catch." "There's no catch," he said, "but there's one thing you should know." She looked up at him. "I wasn't supposed to be in that coffee line the day we met. My driver canceled last minute. I walked for the first time in years. And it led me to you," she exhaled slowly. "You're not real." "I am," he said. Unfortunately, they stopped at the curb waiting for the light. She turned toward him, her hand brushing his. "I don't want to be someone you rescue," she said. "I want to be someone who matters." "You already are." The light changed. He didn't take her hand, but he stayed close as they crossed. "I'm giving you space," he said as they reached the other side. "But I'm not disappearing." She nodded once. "I don't want you to." He stepped back, eyes lingering on hers. "I'll see you soon." And this time, when he walked away, she didn't wonder if he'd ever come back. She knew he would. Willa didn't hear from Graham for 3 days after their walk. Not a message, not a call. And yet, somehow, she didn't feel abandoned, just suspended. Like he was giving her the very thing he promised, space. It was maddening and oddly respectful. She threw herself into work, channeling her confusion into the boutique hotel concept, refining her design with obsessive precision. Her supervisor had passed it straight to the board with a rare nod of approval. On the 4th morning, the receptionist called her phone at exactly 9:30. "There's a delivery for you downstairs," the woman said. "And, it's not flowers." Willa hurried down to the lobby, heart thudding. A tall man in a charcoal uniform waited beside a sleek rectangular crate, polished wood with brass corners. Her name was etched on a small silver plaque on the side. He nodded politely. "Miss Fairbanks, delivery from Mr. Bishop," she blinked. "What is it?" "I was instructed to set it up in your workspace, if that's all right." Minutes later, the crate was opened and revealed a worktable custom-built, walnut top with a brushed steel frame and a hanging rack fitted with every design tool imaginable. Drafting pens, swatches, samples, even imported sketchbooks from Milan. Each item had a place, nothing excessive, just intentional, functional, beautiful. There was no note, no card, just a deliberate silent gesture. Ava passed by and paused. "That's not standard intern equipment," Willa swallowed. "It's not." That evening, she left the office later than usual. The sun had dipped behind the skyline, casting the buildings in dusky amber. As she stepped out of the elevator into the lobby, Graham was standing by the revolving doors, hands in his coat pockets, her breath caught. "You really like entrances," she said as she approached him. "I like timing," he said simply. "Walk with me." They stepped outside together, the air crisp, the city quieter than usual. "You didn't leave a note," she said. "I felt like words would only get in the way of what I was trying to say." "And what was that?" "That I believe in you," he said without hesitation. "And I want to make it easier for you to believe in yourself." She looked over at him. "You have a funny way of showing it." "You didn't like the table." "I loved it," she said, "but it's overwhelming." "I didn't mean for it to be." She stopped walking. "You make me feel like I'm in a world where everything is already written, like I'm just a character stepping into a story you've already outlined." He turned to face her. "Then tell me how to write it differently." "Don't write it at all," she said. "Let it be messy. Let it be real." He was quiet, then said, "I can do messy, I just didn't want to make it harder for you." "You didn't," she said. "You just made it impossible to forget you." He reached for her hand, slow and deliberate, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. They walked in silence for a few blocks, hand in hand, through a quieter part of the neighborhood where the street lamps cast soft pools of gold onto the sidewalk. When they reached a small plaza tucked between 2 buildings, he paused. "I want to show you something." He led her down a narrow path that opened into a garden small, enclosed by ivy-covered walls with a single stone bench under a canopy of string lights. The space was private, almost hidden. "I bought this lot last year," he said. "Was supposed to develop it." She looked around. "It's beautiful." "I thought so too, so I didn't build anything. I just kept it." "Why?" "Because sometimes," he said, shrugging off his coat and placing it on the bench, "you need a place that doesn't ask anything from you." They sat together, the city sounds muffled by the walls, the lights above them flickering gently. "I've done the thing where everything looks perfect on the outside," he said. "I've filled rooms with people, made money, closed deals, but none of it stuck. I was always chasing the next thing, and then you showed up and you didn't want anything. You didn't try to guess who I was. You just saw me." She folded her hands in her lap. I don't know what this is yet. I don't either, he said. But I know I want to find out, and I want to do it with you. She looked at him, studying his face in the soft light. His expression wasn't guarded, it was open. Vulnerable in a way that made her chest tighten. I'm scared, she admitted, because this feels like the part before everything changes. Maybe it is, he said, but maybe it's the part where everything finally makes sense. She turned to him. Then meet me halfway. He reached out slowly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. I've been trying to since the moment I held your spot in line. She leaned in, her forehead resting lightly against his. You really never let go of anything, do you? Not when it matters. She closed the distance between them, her lips brushing his in a kiss that was soft at first, hesitant then deeper, anchored by something neither of them had words for yet. When they finally pulled apart, she was breathless and smiling. I think, she said, we just rewrote the story. Graham smiled, eyes shining. And this time, it's ours. That weekend, she moved into a new apartment, one she chose herself, one she paid for with the promotion offer the firm extended after her hotel concept went viral in the design community. She didn't take a cent from Graham, and he didn't offer. He just showed up every Saturday morning with coffee and a fresh bouquet and helped her hang shelves crookedly on purpose. They didn't rush anything. They didn't need to. Some nights, they'd sit out on that hidden bench under the lights and talk about nothing. Some nights, he'd fall asleep with his head in her lap while she drafted sketches on her tablet. He never tried to fix her life. He just stood beside her while she built it herself, and she never questioned his love again. Because it wasn't about grand gestures, though there were plenty. It was about the man who'd held her place in line without knowing her name, and the woman who'd shown him that being seen was more valuable than being applauded. She trusted a stranger once, and he'd become her beginning. Willa stood at the center of the boutique hotel's model suite, eyes scanning every detail with a sharpness she hadn't possessed months ago. The custom lighting her team had installed bathed the space in a soft amber glow, catching the edge of the hand-finished wood paneling and the layered linen drapery just as she'd imagined. Everything felt intentional, finished, hers. She walked to the window and looked out over the city, her reflection faint in the glass. Behind her, the door opened quietly. I was wondering if you'd still be here, Graham said, stepping inside. I wanted to see it one more time before tomorrow, she replied. Before it stops being an idea and becomes a place people actually stay. They'll never want to leave, he said, his voice low with certainty. She turned, taking in the sight of him in a navy coat, scarf loosened at his throat, a little wind-blown. You didn't have to come. I wanted to, he said, walking toward her. Figured if you were going to be standing here soaking in the moment, I should be here to soak it in with you. She smiled, the kind that no longer held doubt. I thought you were flying to Zurich tonight. I moved the meeting to Tuesday. What? She blinked. You never move meetings. He shrugged one shoulder. I've never had a reason to until now. She crossed her arms, tilting her head. You just casually rearranged a deal with foreign investors so you could stand in a hotel room with me. No, he said. I rearranged it so I could ask you something, and I needed to do it here. Her stomach fluttered. Ask me what? He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small, worn envelope and handed it to her. This was in my desk drawer the whole time, from before I met you. I wrote it after a board meeting, one where I realized I'd built an empire but didn't have a single person I wanted to spend a quiet Sunday with. She opened it slowly. Inside was a note, scribbled in his handwriting. Find someone who sees through the surface. Who doesn't care if you own the building you're standing in, only if you're willing to sit on the floor inside it. When you find her, don't let her go. She looked up at him, stunned. You wrote this before we even met, he nodded. And then one day, I was standing in a coffee line and someone asked me to hold her spot. Her throat tightened. Graham. I didn't know how to name it then, but I do now. He stepped forward, taking her hand. I want a life with you. The late nights, the early mornings, the arguments about where to hang the art, I want all of it. He reached into his other pocket and held something small in his palm, a key. "I want you to move in, not just into my space, but into my life fully." She stared at it. A silver key on a delicate chain. "You're asking me to live with you. I'm asking you to build something with me," he said. "Not just a place, a future." Her eyes filled, but she blinked quickly to keep them clear. "We don't have to rush. We're not," he said. "We're arriving." She took the key, fingers trembling slightly, then slipped it around her neck. "Okay," his smile deepened, relief and joy mingling in his eyes. Yeah, she said, stepping into his arms. "Let's build it." They stood together in the quiet of the room that had started it all, the hum of the city below them, the space around them filled with something deeper than design or luxury. It felt permanent. True, months later, the hotel opened to critical acclaim. Willa's name was listed on the press release as the lead designer, and her office received more inquiries than they could handle. She hired a small team, handpicked, and moved her workspace into a studio loft in the West Village. Graham helped her set it up but never tried to steer it. He knew it was hers. One Friday evening, she came home to their apartment, Graham's penthouse, now filled with warmth and mismatched coffee mugs and a stubborn plant he kept forgetting to water. She found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, trying to cook something that smelled faintly like burnt garlic. She leaned against the doorway. "Is it safe to come in?" He turned, lifting an eyebrow. "That depends." "Are you going to mock my culinary growth or admire the effort?" "I'll admire," she teased, "from a safe distance." He put down the spatula and crossed to her, slipping his arms around her waist. "You know I'd give you anything, right?" "I know," she said. "But I only ever wanted this." He kissed her temple. "Then let's make a habit of it." They ate dinner in imperfect bites, laughing over the uneven pasta and talking about everything and nothing. Later, curled up on the couch, she rested her head on his chest and listened to the steady rhythm of his heart. "Do you ever miss the quiet?" she asked. He glanced down at her. "What do you mean, before me, before all this?" He shook his head. "I used to live in silence, now I live in sound." "Your sound, and I'd never trade it." She closed her eyes, content in a way she never had been before. "I love you." He tucked a curl behind her ear. "I love you too. I think I started the moment you barged through that coffee shop like your life depended on it." She laughed softly. "It kind of did." They stayed like that, wrapped in each other and the life they'd built, one choice, one moment at a time. No grand declarations, no staged perfection. Just two people who had chosen each other and kept choosing every single day, and they never stopped.